Okay, so in this session, what we'll be discussing is that why do we do sampling? What are the reasons for sampling? What is the process? What is a sample? What is a population? About the methods of sampling. Then basically we have two methods, probability and non-probability. So we'll be looking at what is probability and what is non-probability sampling, right? So let's start with this. Okay. Then there's always a question actually. Whenever we are going to do sample, and everybody always asks a question that why don't we collect data from everyone? Why do we have to take a sample actually? So basically, if in the case, let's say if there's a case where you really want to collect the data from everybody or everybody wants to answer, in that case, we call it a census, right? So we call it census. And if, for example, you are doing sampling, so this is called sampling. So usually people always have some type of debate about if census is better or if sampling is better. That's every time going on in research, debate about 2 points, whether one is better, whether another one is better. So actually why we do sample is maybe sometimes because the size of the population is too big and we cannot access it. Sometimes even cost is very high. So because the cost is very high, you cannot get data from everyone. That's why you have to make a sample. Sometimes you even do sampling because of convenience and accessibility to elements. Accessibility of elements. So sometimes what happens is that it's very difficult for you to collect data from everyone because people are too far to spread out. Then you cannot collect data from everyone, so you have to make a sample. Okay, so the reason actually, as I mentioned, budget and time constraints. Usually, if you have very large populations, like last time I gave an example of collecting data from all the students in Kabul city. So, if in that case, because you don't have enough money to go everywhere and collect data from everyone, and also you don't have enough time to collect data from all the people. So, it's the case. It's one of the reasons for sampling. Then another one is actually sample can give you very good results. The results would be very accurate and very reliable. There's only one condition for that. If you really want your sample to provide you very accurate and reliable results, you have to make sure that your sample is representative of the population. Like if your population has different type of groups, you have to take from each group different type of samples. So your sample must be very representative. Sometimes even this happens that people who collect data, let's say, sometimes even this happens that let's say if you have if you have 1,000 students in a university, right, and you collect data from all of them, which I just called you, it's called census, right? And then another time out of these 1,000 students, you take a sample of sometimes what happens is like, for example, you have 1,000 students in a university and you collect data from all of them, which is called census. And later on you collect the data from sample of 200 students from this 1,000 students. So you sometimes can also see this type of case where the results are not reliable, and So sometimes you even see this case that if you collect data from everybody inside your population, the results you get are not reliable. But from the same population, if you get a small sample, the results become reliable. So you sometimes there are these type of cases as well. So because can anybody guess what can be the reason for this? That if you collect data from all the people inside the population and if you get a sample, sometimes this type of thing happen. Anybody can answer this? Why do you think it can happen? I mean that okay. So let me explain. In this type of case, if for example this is the case, 1,000 students in a university. So if one person wants to go and collect data from them, one problem is that because the population is big, so people have very different answers. So the answers are very spread out. Yes, exactly what Riaz is saying. Because the conclusion is very difficult to, because there are too many ideas. Another thing is since the population is too big, so sometimes you even the data collection people who are collecting the data, they can make some mistake or they can miss out some data because they are collecting data from a very large sample. So these are the reasons why results are not reliable sometimes even if you collect data from the higher number of population. So in this type of case, usually people use samples, right? Okay. Another thing is why people do sampling. So another reason for sampling is to rule out the errors or ensure reliability, right? Now, what does this mean? Okay, uh, when I was doing my masters in UK, right? So while I was studying in UK, I was also working in one pizza factory, right? So what in the pizza factory would happen is that they had a belt actually. They had a belt like this, and after people prepare pizza, so each pizza will come on the belt like this, and then it would go out back and go. So to ensure the reliability, what would the supervisor do? Sometimes he would come, he would pick up this pizza, right? He would check the weight, he would check the quality, he would check that everything is in proper. Then he might get this pizza randomly, any type of pizza, any pizza on the belt. He would pick it up, he would check the quality, the cleanliness, everything about it, and if it's okay, then it's fine. If it has some problem, then they would stop the line, then they would check each and every pizza. So sometimes when you are producing in a factory or in some industry on a higher scale or something, so sampling can help you to ensure the reliability, the quality, or rule out the errors from that place. Okay, now actually what is a sample? Sample basically is a subset of a population, and this population can include anything. Okay, now what this population, we call this population, right? This population can include individuals. Individual means human beings, employees, customers, objects, anything. Just like I mentioned, pizza, telephone, mobile phone, laptops, anything, objects, households. Now, household basically means one small family actually, right? So sometimes when in big cities they are counting, so they count each household, how many households there are in big cities. It's like a small family. Businesses, organizations, anything. This population can be anything, and from those things, when you select, um, this one becomes your sample. This one. So sample is always within the population. Actually, another another benefit of doing sampling is you actually get to know the characteristics of that population, right? For example, if we okay, let's say we say in Malaysia the literacy rate for female is 60%. If there is this one research report which talks like this, so do you think they can go to each and every woman in Malaysia and ask her if she has studied or not, if she is educated or not? It's not possible. So what they do is they take a sample of 5,000 or 8,000 or 20,000 people. They do a research on this, and those numbers they can generalize for the whole population. So sometimes sampling can also tell you unknown characteristics about the population, just like this literacy rate, age, all different type of things. Okay, now remember that if you have a population whose number is known. Now, if the number of a population is known, it's called population. However, if the number is not known, then you call it universe. Like for example, if we talk about how many customers of Apple in the world, maybe you don't know how many actually people are using. So then you don't call that term as population, you call it as universe. But since these days there is a lot of technology and everything, everybody keeps records, so it's very difficult. You get a place where you don't really know how many people are included in the population or how many objects are in the population. So usually these days, if you are doing research, you will everywhere have a population. Okay. Now, again, the same thing. A census is an investigation of all the individual elements of population. If you are taking in your research all the people included in your population, it's called census. Okay. Now, most of these things we already discussed. Like for example, these we have discussed, right? Okay. This one is also very important. When for example we are making sample, right? And as I mentioned, sample should be representative. So when you are actually making a sample, you should make sure that you know the population of that sample. You know the whole population, because if you don't know the whole population, you might get very wrong conclusions. Like, let's say, if you want to do a research in Kabul, right? In Kabul now there are male and female, both genders they are working. But if you go and do research on women only, then we cannot say that everybody in Kabul is uh, they like their job. Let's say they like their job because we did not collect data. We do not really know about the population, so the conclusion is not very correct, right? So when you are collecting the sample, when you are collecting data from your sample, make sure that you also know the population as well. Okay, so how the process starts? So the process starts from here. No, Sahab, I am not saying that you have to collect data from the population. I'm not saying this. I'm saying you have to design, you have to take out a sample from the population. But what I'm saying is that when you are collecting data from your sample, you must know the characteristics of the population as well. Yeah. Now let's say we start the sampling process. So first of all, you have to define the target population. What is your target population, right? Like let's say we want to collect data, we want to assess the job satisfaction of employees in Kabul, right? So if this is the case, our target population will be all the working people in Kabul. This would be our target population. Then we have to select a sampling frame, right? Sampling frame simply means that how much okay, let's talk about sampling frame after some time because I'll discuss it later in detail. Determine if probability or non-probability sampling method will be chosen. Then you have to discuss whether you will collect a sample through probability sampling or through non-probability sampling, right? Okay, after this, you have to plan a sampling unit. What would be your sampling unit? What would be the sample size? And then you will have to go for the actual sampling units, and then you have to conduct the field work. Field work means collect the data. So this is the process, whole complete process of sampling. Okay. As I mentioned before, population is all the potential study elements. Everybody you think can have the data which you want to collect, it would be your population. Okay, now almost okay. This is also a bit very uh, something you need to know actually. Uh, there are two terms. One is called population, another one is population, and other one is called study population, right? So as I mentioned, population includes everybody who you think will have the data you want to collect. If you want to collect data about job satisfaction in Kabul, then yes, okay, fine. You know that everybody working inside of Kabul is your population, right? From within the population, you also know that there are some areas in Kabul, let's say, where you cannot go, you don't have access. Let's say very high rank officials, you cannot access them, so you will exclude them. You will only look at those people who you can access. So that would be your study population. Now from that study population, you will select a sample later on. So this is a very fine difference between population and study population. Okay, how you define your target population? The target population is that complete group whose characteristics are to be determined through the sampling. This is exactly what I said. Your population includes every person who you think have your data. So then, because you know that they can answer your questions, then you want to collect data from them. That would be your population. Okay. A target population may be, for example, the faculty members in the Department of Management Sciences and the Complex Network, all housewives in Kabul, all pre-college students in Kuala Lumpur, all medical doctors in Afghanistan. So these are different types of examples of population, like all faculty members in Department of Management Sciences and Complex Network. So let's say if there is one university, it has different branches in different cities of Afghanistan, and we want to do a research on the teachers in the management sciences department, so it would be our population. If we want to do a research on housewives in Kabul, so all housewives in Kabul would be our population. So these are different examples of population. Now let's say if you want to, yes, if you want to define the target population, let's say, so for target or group or target population, you have to define it very clearly. Like let's say if here we say all faculty members in the Department of Management Sciences. So when we say it, we also have to say, do these faculty members have to be teachers or researchers? Because in different universities, there are two types of faculty members. One are teachers, one are researchers. Okay. Similarly, all medical doctors in Afghanistan. So when we say this, we also have to say whether these doctors have to be specialists or general doctors. So you have to be very, very clearly defining your population. Okay, choice of sample size. I did not go to probability and non-probability yet. When we come to probability and non-probability, I will explain it in detail. Okay, now when we have to determine the sample size, like we know that population always is a big number, right? So population is a big number. We want to select a sample from it. So if we want to select a sample from it, we need to know different types of things. One is this number one and number two. These are same thing. Sorry, Riaz, I didn't understand your question. Um, can you explain it a bit better? Riaz? I did not understand your question. Hello?
Yes, sir. Mr. Me, sir.
Yes, Riaz, what is your question?
Sir, like you said, that in target population, for example, if you were talking about all the housewives in Chicago, then in this target group, if we go, then we cannot search for all of the housewives. Then how will
Yes.
target group and how we will do? We will take some samples and then we will take our conclusion, or we will go to the each house and we will
No,
talk
no, no,
to
no, no,
the.
no. No, 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 no. Okay, let me explain it, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, no. Actually, this is what I'm telling you. See, this is exactly the question which a lot of people ask. Because you know you cannot go to every house in Kabul and ask people about the housewife, right? It's impossible to collect data from the whole population. So in this case, definitely you have to select a sample, right? Now, when you select a sample, there are different questions. Number one question is how much should be the sample? Whether you should collect data from 100 people, from 200, from 300, from 500. How much should be the sample size, right? And second, how should you select the sample? Like, what should be the method of selecting the sample? So, method of selecting sample, we will be discussing it after some time, right? Later on. But sample size, this is what I'm discussing right now, right? So you have to select sample, but how you will do it, we will discuss it after some time. Okay? Okay, Sahab, what are you asking? Yeah, sure, sure. Wait, let me unmute you. Oh, oh, hello? Sahab, I don't know what's the problem. I am unmuting you and you mute yourself again. I don't know what's wrong. Hmm? Is there some problem with your mic or something? Because I unmute you and it automatically mutes again. So I don't know what's the problem. So you are online from the phone, right? Oh, I think it's just because of this problem. I'm not sure, but I think because it's because of I don't see any other problem. Okay, anyway, because it's not working now, so can you quickly type your question? Okay, Sahab, I told you that I did not explain or define or discuss probability or non-probability something yet. It will come after 4 or 5 slides. So when it comes, I will explain it in detail. Because I did not explain it now, even I define it, it's no point because I'll be defining it. Okay. Okay, sure, yes. Let me explain it. Then if you have any idea or any question, then you can ask me. Okay. So okay, so these first 2 points are somewhat similar. Confidence needed in the data, margin of error that can be tolerated, right? Now, basically, what happens is that in the start, I asked you, sometimes when we collect data from everyone, the results are not reliable, and sometimes when we select a sample, then the results are reliable. Why? And then one of the students, if I'm not wrong, it was Riaz. He said that because the complete collation, a lot of people are there, so conclusion is difficult. Exactly, this is the case. Now, what happens is that sometimes when you are collecting data from people, there are errors. Why? Because you must also know that a lot of people, they just if you give them your questionnaire to fill it for you, then they just without reading it, they will just pick it up and fill whatever they want, right? So in those type of cases, there is always an error. So you want to uh, select the sample size based on how much error you can tolerate. Now, if you know that, I don't know how many of you people know the data analysis or something, but always whenever you do a data analysis, there is one thing called significance value or p value, right? So it's always set based on these things. Usually, uh, Sahab is saying that larger sample is better. Well, this is not the case actually. Uh, there are, as I mentioned here actually, types of analysis always discuss your sample. Now, let's say if you want to do some analysis, let's say you want to do regression, yes, you need a bit larger sample size, but if you do correlation, you don't need a very large sample size, right? So it depends on what type of analysis you are doing. Plus, last thing is that what is the size of your population, right? So if your population is very high, let's say if your population is 10,000 people and you want to collect data from 20 people, it makes no sense. So if your population is larger, then yes, your sample size would also be larger. If your population is a lower number or not very large, then yes, your sample will also be not very large. Usually, a lot of people say that if you read different research papers or things, then a lot of people say that for most of the cases, a sample of 300 to 400 is enough for most of the cases. So, okay, what is the sampling frame? Basically, you cannot always develop a sampling frame. Okay, sampling frame is like, let's say if I want to do a research on the students of this class, so I have got this list on whiteboard, right? If all of you can see this list, if all of you can see this list, on this list we have got all the students of this class, right? The names of all students of this class. So this is actually a sampling frame. Well, Najib, academic percentage of population to be selected and sampling. You see, this is what I'm telling you. Because when you are doing research, you have to read different things, right? Sometimes you have to be very, very smart. Because so many people have written books on research methods, so many people have written research papers. Now, some people, they say that a sample of over 100 is more than enough. Some people say that no, a sample of 300 to 500 is enough. Some people say, some people also say that no, it should be a percentage. If you know your population and your population is, let's say, 1000, so it should be around 10 to 15%, right? So there is no hard and fixed rule for a sample size. There is no such hard and fixed rule that you have to select 20%, you have to select 30. It's not like this. Different books, different authors, different researchers, they say different things. What I believe is that for most of the research, a sample more than 150 to 200 is enough for most of the cases. Since all of you are also doing MBA, so in your MBA thesis, a sample of more than 150 would be enough. Okay. Now I was telling you about sampling frame. Sampling frame is actually a list of all the population. Like as I mentioned, if I want to do a research on the students of this class, so I have got this list, right? This list with the student number and ID. So this list will be my sampling frame, right? So remember that most of the cases sampling frame does not include everyone from the population. There is some miss outs, and also in a lot of cases you will not find the sampling frame. Like I said, if you want to do a research on housewives in Kabul, you cannot find a list of housewives in Kabul. So in that case, you do not have a sampling frame. Yes, if from somewhere like from some NGO or somewhere you can get a list of housewives in Kabul, you can get it, but it won't be complete. There would be something missing out, so there will be an error, right? This is just a formality. In most of the cases, you cannot find a sampling frame. But if you are doing the research on some commercial organizations, let's say if you want to do a research in banks in Afghanistan, then it's easy. You can go to your main bank of Afghanistan, you can get a list of all the banks working in Afghanistan, and that would be your sampling frame. So if your research is on commercial organizations, then yes, it's easier for you to collect the sampling frame. But if your research is on consumers or the customers, then it's difficult to get the sampling frame. Okay, now another thing is sampling unit. Unit simply means, like we said, sampling size. How much should be enough? I said 150 to 200 is enough. So 150 to 200 what? Is it 150 to 200 customers? Is it 150 to 200 housewives? Is it 100 to 200 teachers? So what it is? Housewives, teachers, customers, all these are called units. Units are always of two types. One is called individual, one is called group. So let's say if your research is about, let's say if your research is about customers of uh, people who use iPhone in Kabul, right? So in that case, the units would be simple people, like one individual customer. Hello. But let's say if you want to do a research on um, the group performances going on in Kabul, like those stage performance, right? Or musical groups in Kabul. Let's say if you want to do a research on this, so then your sample would contain musical groups or musical bands. Those people are as a group, more than one people. So either your sample would be individual, either it would be group. I don't know. I think some of the students can hear me, so I don't think it's the problem from my side. I think it's the problem with the internet speed. So a lot of, see, a few students are saying that they can't hear me, but a few are saying they can hear me. So I don't know what should I do, because if some people are hearing me, it means that it's okay from my side. Okay, so sampling unit, as I was mentioning, either it would be individuals, either it would be groups. So you have, it depends on your research. If your research is on groups, like musical groups, I said, or like movie cast, so in that case, you have to select your unit as a group. But if you are just doing customers or employees or those type of things, then your sampling unit would be individuals. Okay, here it is what you are asking me. Now basically we have, when we are doing sampling, right, or let's say quantitative sampling based on numbers, then we have two types. One is called probability sampling, one is called non-probability sampling, right? Different books, they talk about different type of sampling types. In this one there are 5 types in total: simple, random, certified, multi-stage, cluster sampling, convenience, and snowball. In some other books you might find 8, in some other books you might find 10 or different types, right? Okay. Uh, what are these we will be discussing now? What you are saying is what is probability or what is non-probability. Actually, probability sampling is that sampling in which selection, the chance to select anybody in the sample is equal. Let's say what? If I want to do a research, or let's say not a research, if I want to select one student from your class, right? So what I will do is I will take paper and make it into different pieces. On each piece I will write name of every student, right? And after this, when I finish, there will be around 29 papers, because there are 29 people in the class. So what I will do is I will fold this paper and put them inside a box. Now after I put them inside a box, I will move those papers and take out one paper. And let's say after I take out that one paper, the name on that paper is Mr. Sahab, right? Now before I select Mr. Sahab, the chance for everybody is equal. Like, it can be name of anyone, because everybody's name is inside the box one time. So this type of sampling is called probability sampling, in which probability basically means chance, in which the chance for selecting anybody from the population is equal, right? So this is probability. Non-probability is opposite to this. Non-probability, let's say, out of this class, out of this list of students, if I want to select, then I will see, okay, let's say those students who are not present in the class now, so remove their name. When I remove their name and then I put the names of those students who are available in the class, now the chance of selecting everybody is not equal. The chance of everybody is not equal because I have already removed a few because they are not available here. So even then the chance is not equal. So in that case we call it non-probability sampling, because so usually people do non-probability sampling uh, because of availability, because of convenience, or because of some characteristics that one person wants to study. Now for example, if you want to study, yeah, I will give you examples when we are discussing the types. Well, Sahab, it depends on what type of study you are having. It depends on the population as well, but it depends on the nature of your study. Right? Or another definition for probability and non-probability is this one. In probability, you use some type of a formula. For probability sampling, you can use some type of formula or mathematics rule to select a sample. But for non-probability, you do not select it based on some type of formula or some type of mathematical rule. Okay, now, non well, let me tell you, a lot of people use non-probability, but using non-probability sampling also has some type of problems. First, we only use non-probability when it's impossible for us to know the complete population. And remember, if you don't know your complete population, then you cannot do probability testing. Because for probability, you must know everyone, or you must have some record or data of everyone. So if you don't have, then you can't use probability, right? Okay. Another, as I mentioned, when the sampling frame is not known, then you use non-probability sampling, right? Let's say if as we mentioned, the housewives in Kabul. Now nobody knows how many housewives in Kabul are there, or let's say how many. Is there any list for the names or for the addresses of the housewives in Kabul? You don't have. So if you don't have, then you can't use probability sampling. Then you have to use non-probability. But remember that with non-probability, there's always one issue of normal distribution. Your data is not, your sample is not represented. It's just a chance. It's not. It does not mean that always it will be not representative. But most of the times, if you are using non-probability sampling, your sample will not be very representative. Okay, this is one thing which is the most used method of non-probability sampling. It's called convenience sampling. This is a technique on which you select a sample based on convenience in a specific time period. What are the advantages? The advantages is it's very okay. Let me give you an example first. As I mentioned, housewives of Kabul, right? So if you want to use convenience sampling, what will you do is you will do to a shopping market where people usually come to buy different things. and there you can ask different ladies, are you a housewife? If they say yes, then you can ask them, can you please fill my questionnaire or something. After you have done this 200 or 300 times, if you have 200 to 300 questionnaires filled, this means that you have collected data based on convenience, because you went to a market based on convenience, availability, you just collect data from the people there and that's it. So this is one example of convenience sampling. The advantages are it's very convenient and economical, you don't need to spend a lot of money. The biggest disadvantage and the problem with sampling is it's not representative. So your sample is not representative. Okay. Now another one is judgmental sampling or purposive sampling. Now judgment sampling or as in the name for judgment or purposive, you select the sample based on your own judgment. Like if you are doing a research and you think that you can collect data from this group of people or this sample, it will serve your purpose, then it's called purposive sampling. Okay. Let's say again we take the same example of Kabul housewives. If you want to collect data from housewives of Kabul, right? Then what you do is you sit down with a few of your friends and teachers and your contacts, right? And you ask them that, or let's say before doing this, you make a list of different areas, right? And now in Kabul there are some areas which are very very traditional. There are some areas which are very very modern, right? You know that if you go to those traditional areas, it's very difficult for you to collect data. You might not be able to collect data. But some modern areas, some shopping malls, you know that if you go there, collecting data there would be a bit easier. So based on your judgment, you go to those modern areas and there you collect data. So that's called the judgmental or purposive sampling. Usually people use judgmental and convenience mix. You make a judgment, based on that judgment you go and based on convenience you collect data. Okay, this is the third one. This is called quota sampling, right? In quota sampling, what you do is, okay, what is a quota actually? Quota means different groups, right? Okay, now let's say that if you want to do a research on housewives, right? The same example I would be giving to you know how different is each sampling size, sampling type is from another one. Now you want to collect data, but you also want to make the sample representative of those people who have children, those people who do not have children, those people whose husband is working and those people whose husband is not working, those people who are educated and those people who are not educated, right, among the housewives. So what you do is you see that to collect data from 200 people. Out of this 200 people, I would collect data 10% from those who are educated, 10% from those who are not educated. Similarly, 10% from those whose husband is dead, 10% from those whose husband is alive, 10% whose husband is working, 10% whose husband is not working. So what you do is you make different groups in your sample and you collect data from each group. This is just to make sure that the data you are collecting becomes a bit representative. As I mentioned in the start, non-probability sampling has this problem that the data is not representative. So if you do this type of thing, then you can make the sample a bit representative. Advantages of this quota sampling is, one is it's very quick, the cost is not too much. Again, after making the groups, each group can be collected based on convenience. Disadvantages means, okay, now the biggest disadvantage is that it's not natural, because you have made the group, so you might make those groups which are easy for you. It's not representative, but it's easy for you. So this is the only disadvantage with quota sampling. Okay, the fourth one is called snowball sampling. Snowball sampling, okay, because most of you people are from Kabul, I think. So I think in Kabul it always snow, right, in the winter. In the past, what those people who lived in the areas where it snowed in the winter, the children would play like this. They would make a small ball of snow, right? And after they make a small ball of snow, they will roll it on the road. And the more this ball rolls on the road, it attaches more snow to it, and the size of the ball increases, increases, and increases. Right? So the snowball sampling idea is coming from this. In this one, you select some of those people who wants to give you data and who are close to you, any type of relation you have with them, and then those people help you to collect data from other people. Let's say if you want to collect data from people who are working in United Nations in Kabul, right? If I want to, or let's say housewife example, another one, okay, housewife. Now what happens is that you want to collect data from housewives, but you do not know a lot of housewives, or you are afraid that you cannot collect data from them. So what you will do is you will talk to a few of your friends. You will also talk to a few of your family members of those different people, and you will maybe talk to 20 or 30 different people, housewives, and you will ask them to help you to collect data from other housewives living near their home. So what happens is that, let's say if you talk, or maybe you talk to your sister, you ask your sister that can you help me to collect data from some of the housewives living near our home. So maybe your sister is easy to collect data from other housewives. So even you identify 20 or 30 people in the start, they can help you to collect data from 50 or 70 or 500 or 200 people. So this is called snowball sampling. Usually snowball sampling has this advantage that the sample size is a bit smaller. Most of the times you have to use some money because those people in the start who you will identify, you have to pay them a little bit sometimes. Another problem with this one is that you just don't know that whether people who you identified, they collected data from real people or not. However, nobody thinks about this one. This type of sampling is very, very useful in those places where you know that you cannot collect data. So in those cases, you have to find a few people and then ask for their help to collect data for you. So it's called snowball sampling. So now we discuss about probability sampling. Remember, probability sampling you can see and only do if you know or if you have record of everyone in the population. If you know everybody in the population, then you can do probability sampling. The first one is random sampling. Random sampling is just like I told you. You put names of all the people in a box, mix them together, take out one name or take out 50 names. That would be your random sampling. Another way of doing this is that these days, just like you all students have a student number. So if you want to do research, let's say on WWS students, so you student numbers of all the students in computer software, and computer software will randomly take out 100 numbers, and then those 100 people will give you the data. So this is called random sampling. The second one is systematic sampling, right? Systematic sampling is always based on some type of system. Like for example, if we have this list of students, right? I want to select sample. I would say, okay, I will select every third student. So let's say if this is first, second, third. So I select this one, this person, then 1, 2, and 3. This person. Then again we will, okay, let's say every third person. So first we select this person, then we select this person, until the list goes on. So this is called systematic sampling, based on some type of system. Like example given here is from a list of 1500 names, you can select each name, any name randomly on the list, and then you say every fifth name after this. So that's how you can collect them. For systematic sampling, yes, in order to make it work very well, what you have to do is before you start this systematic sampling, you have all these names here, all these names, you have to mix them up and down. You have to mix them very well, and after you have to select systematically. Okay. This stratified or segment random sampling is exactly the same as the quota sampling. But in quota sampling, as I mentioned, that when you are selecting a sample, you divide your sample into different groups, and for each group, you collect data based on convenience or based on anything. In stratified sampling, it's the same. You divide your sample in different groups, like 5 groups, 10 groups, and for each group, then data will be collected randomly. Random sampling you will use for each group. So it's exactly the same as quota. That's it. There are some other things as well. One is called cluster sampling. Cluster sampling is in those cases where a very huge population, just like we were discussing Kabul city, right? So in this, you divide your sampling in different geographical clusters, different groups based on geographical locations, right? So let's say if you want to do in Kabul, they have to divide Kabul into 4 or 5 different areas and then collect data from there. Sometimes now people use also internet sampling, like you put your questionnaire on internet, like on Facebook or anywhere, and then people will fill it up. It's called internet sampling. Okay. Now, when we are selecting a sample, we should always make sure that the sample is very accurate. If you want to do a research in which you want to find out relationships and variables, you must make sure that sample is very, very accurate. It should be very, very representative. Another thing is, while selecting the sample, you make sure that you have enough time, enough money, enough capacity, ability, skills to collect those data from those people. Also make sure that the sample you are selecting, they have enough data for you, right? Now, for example, if you want to select a sample on housewives in Kabul, let's say, and you want to ask them questions about something which they don't know, their knowledge is not that much or anything, it is useless. So you must make sure that the sample you are selecting also have some information with them. Also make sure that you know the geographical configurations. It's usually used for cluster sampling, so it's okay. Okay. Okay, now what are the keys to good sample? One is randomness, right? Usually if you are doing a probability sample is the best, because in that case you know that your sample will be representative, you are doing it randomly. So if you are using probability, that's the best, right? Avoid biasness. If you want to collect data from 500 people, out of those 500, 400 are your friends, and all of your friends just fill the questionnaire asking you that what should I take, no point. So you should not be really biased while collecting the data and selecting the sample. Make sure that in your sample you include different subgroups, just like I mentioned. If housewives, you must make sure that those housewives whose husband are working, whose husband are not working, housewives who are educated, who are not educated. So make different subgroups within your sample. And remember, if your sample is properly designed and you select your sample properly, your responses will be very, very good, right? Don't just think that you will go to anybody and they will give you grades. That's not like this. So properly design your sample and then give your questionnaires to them, and it will be enough to collect data from them. I think this is the last slide. So if anybody have any question about sampling, you can ask now, and then if no question, then we can finish the class. Yeah, after this class, I will send you session 3 and session 4. If there are any questions or anything you want to ask, you can ask now. Otherwise, I will give them. Okay, so no questions. Okay, so I think we can finish the class. Okay, so I think we can finish the class, and in the next session, I will give you the second assignment, so then you can do it. Okay, so thank you everybody. I think everybody have a good week ahead, and hope to talk to you in good health next week. Okay, bye bye.